You may or may not have witnessed the phenomenon that is Billy Te Kahika Jnr, leader of the New Zealand Public Party, co-leader with Jamie Lee Ross of Advance New Zealand.
So it's time for me to shut up and hand the mic over to Billy!
Preaching to his followers.
I am an ordinary Māori Kiwi New Zealander, and I woke up to it very early on that something did not smell right.
To support his key political plank that the government does not tell the truth, he does.
We know we are thinking logically. What we said early on that the media claimed I was a conspiracy theorist is now mainstream.
What he says stems directly from QAnon, the unfounded conspiracy theory that began in the US in 2017 and is now sweeping the globe. At its core, that there's an elite cabal which covertly controls the world.
The disease was never lethal as it was made out to be.
And it's morphing to include anti-5G, anti-lockdown thinking, that coronavirus is a hoax or no worse than the seasonal flu. Billy Te Kahika and his falsifications might not matter if nobody was listening, but they are.
We are your party, Advance New Zealand. Your voice, your power, your party.
His rallies are full, but it's when you analyse his social media that you really get a sense of his influence. In the past 2 months, their Facebook party page has had nearly 800,000 interactions. And this is the really telling part, nearly 4 million video views, way higher than either Labour or National. What's in it for him?
Fame. I think that he's very dangerous on a whole lot of levels.
Stop this 1080 for a start, this 5G, it's got to go, it's killing all our people, man.
And we've got to question the COVID and the virus.
Labour, freedom! Freedom!
He's speaking what we've been thinking right along.
He's an honest man.
What he's saying sounds more true. He's the only one speaking the truth. He's the only one confronting the government. He's the only one calling all these out.
When he begins to tap into QAnon arguments, when he begins to replicate some of the extreme views that we find in the United States, when he begins to echo some of the extreme right views that we see here in New Zealand, he's beginning to take some of those arguments in a very compelling way, in terms of communicating them, out to a much larger audience.
It's led to even Te Kahika's own brother, Mara Te Kahika, speaking out.
Because I haven't said this whole time because I've sort of like been looking the other way from the train wreck, but yeah, the real lines in the sand for me have been anti-vax and the tangible serious risk that COVID represents.
So what's the end game here? Someone who's worked closely with him says it's beyond the election and politics, that Te Kahika talked to her before he even went into politics about a far bigger influence.
I'm doing this, he said, to get thousands and thousands of dollars so I can buy land and I can build a fortress and, you know, and take all my friends and my family to protect them. And he said to me, and I love you, you can come too. You can be one of my followers and come too. And that's when alarm bells started to ring in my head, and I started to think, he really thinks he's the Messiah or something, you know, that he's the chosen one.
He's corralled himself a big flock or following, and is you know, touting himself as the shepherd to lead them to salvation.
Te Kahika's followers have already donated several $100,000, and former staff allege up to $100,000 in koha collected at events is unaccounted for. Given he's attracting so many followers and so much money, we wanted to find out more about Billy Te Kahika. Does he deserve to hold himself up as a truth teller, a politician driven by honesty and integrity? Have a look at what we've discovered about him. You can decide for yourself.
I don't believe he is who he's saying he is. He is a false prophet.
Kia ora, Billy.
There's so much we wanted to ask Billy Te Kahika, and he did sit down for an interview with us. So as a public figure, obviously what you say about yourself is up for examination.
Yes, absolutely.
And you've said recently that you'd be the easiest person to do due diligence on, so we've done some.
Yep.
You've also said that you think that this is a campaign to discredit you, which it's not. It's our job to examine the facts. Okay?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
And you do talk about transparency and accountability, right?
Certainly do. Yep.
So it's only fair that we should put some of those facts to you.
Well,
I want to start
questions, not facts.
Both of those things.
Yeah,
that's right.
that's right.
You put them out as facts, so let's interrogate those facts.
Go for it.
But later in the interview, just as we were about to get to a crucial moment, this happened.
I'm sorry. So I'm going to leave now.
Why are you going to leave?
Because you've offended me.
Offended
talking
you.
about my faith. Sorry.
No, you talk about your faith, Mr. Te Kahika. You talk about your faith all the time. I think you're leaving because you know what's coming next, don't you? But let's back up a little bit. Becoming the leader of a political party means lots of speeches and public appearances. Te Kahika's first was here at the Akarana Yacht Club in Auckland in June, letting the audience get to know him and his background.
I did. And then I joined the army because I wanted to be an SAS soldier myself, Special Air Service soldier. So I trained up to do that, became as fit as a fiddle. And then while I was doing that, I did all of the 3 introductory courses to enter the New Zealand Military Intelligence Corps. And I did those, and that is what gave me the discipline to be able to research and study the topics that we're talking about tonight and really find out about them. From there, I wanted to go into the New Zealand Military Intelligence Corps, and they said to me, you're going to be a great guy to go to East Timor, because if you'll be able to blend in and whakawhanaungatanga with them, family, bit of, got the bit of the chingy eyes myself, and, I'd be all good.
The way he speaks, his military credentials appear impressive. And he doesn't just talk about it, he puts it in writing. One of the documents we've obtained for this investigation is Te Kahika's own CV, where he lists his time in the military as a tour of duty in Army Intelligence in Waiouru, then another tour of duty with the New Zealand Army Military Police in Trentham. But this is Te Kahika's statement of service, the official record of his time with the New Zealand Defence Force, which shows he was in the army for less than 18 months and he was a private in the Logistics Corps, which deals with things like movement of supplies. So his CV exaggerates not only the time he spent in the army, but his role. He turns 3 introductory intelligence courses into a tour of duty. You didn't do tours of duty with Intelligence Corps or the Military Police. You did your basic training, right?
Yeah.
And some introductory courses. You were a private in the Logistics Corps?
Yeah, that's correct.
Didn't leave the Logistics Corps?
No, but I did the attached courses, so they are called tour of duties. I got them on my. I'm sorry, I have to respectfully disagree with you. It's everyday language. It's everyday army language when you say that you're going down to do a stint with another unit. It's called a TOD.
That is not the official use of tour of duty. It's a
Who's told you
cute
this?
use of tour of duty. And it makes it sound more than what you did. You were a private in the Logistics Corps for 17 months,
Yep,
right?
18 months, yep.
17 months,
18.
according to your statement of service.
Right.
And actually on that note of the amount of time that you spent in the army, on your CV you say that you entered the army in 2000.
2001.
No, on your CV you say you entered the army in 2000.
Okay, well that's a typo.
A typo?
Yeah,
so you add a year to your service in the army and
service,
call it a typo?
No, I've always said I've done 18 months in my tour of in my army service. So
I want to go. It's an official document. When you're putting out your history, your job history, and you add a year to 17 months of service, that's a significant exaggeration.
It depends. No, it's not. It depends where you start off. That's wrong. I've got my CV and it's got 2001 to 2003 on it.
I'm sorry.
So whatever you've got,
incorrect.
pardon me. Whatever copy you've got, right, is inaccurate.
It's your words, it's your dates, and you say that
wrong.
you started in the army in 2000, so you admit that's wrong.
Yeah,
Right.
hold on a second. I admit it's a typo. If it's in there, it shouldn't be.
Back at that speech at the Akarana Yacht Club, Te Kahika tells the audience he didn't go to East Timor because of this.
Right, but what happened? Waiuru Army Bar, get in a big punch up. I'm a Christian today, just saying. And the major hauled me up the next day and said, mate, you're not really good at it, go back to your base. So I did that. I was only young, but it was a good fight.
There was indeed a punch-up with this guy. Thank you so much for talking with us. He says he and Te Kahika were on a junior intelligence course together at Waiuru. Also on the course was a woman who'd suffered a serious head injury in a car crash, leaving her with a slight speech impediment.
And called her retarded, and in general insulted people with psychological disabilities. He called them retarded.
Was he mocking her for her speech impediment?
Absolutely, he was mocking her and in general people with intellectual disabilities, and I was absolutely horrified by that. I was absolutely disgusted. It did not sit well with me. I invited Mr. Te Kahika Jnr into the male ablutions of the Waiuru RSA. I invited him to apologise. He chose not to and got halfway through an expletive before a scuffle did occur, where his head went through the wall of the RSA.
How did his head go through the wall of the RSA?
It was guided there.
By you?
Yes.
You'll notice there are a lot of people who don't want to be identified. For some, it's about a fear of retribution from Te Kahika's loyal followers. Others want to protect their business. For the woman at the centre of the RSA incident, she simply doesn't want her name connected with it, but she confirms the altercation and that there was a lot of blood. She also recalls that there was a lot of alcohol drunk that night and that Te Kahika hit on her. She says she told him to F off because she found him full of himself. You say at that speech at the Akarana Yacht Club that what ended that deployment to East Timor was a scuffle in the army bar in Waiuru. I don't know if you remember what started that scuffle, because apparently there was a lot of alcohol drunk that night.
Yep.
You do remember?
Well, it's a long time ago. It's over 18 years ago, so it was a very drunk night, very typical drunk night. Yeah.
Okay. So the person with whom you were fighting says that that scuffle happened because he took offence at you mocking a woman on your course for her speech impediment.
And I had no idea there was. What it was, we were all joking around, sitting around talking, as soldiers do, and having a good old laugh. I had, and still to this day, had no inkling that a lady had in the company had a speech impediment. That, I mean, I was absolutely shocked and horrified that that would ever happen. It's one thing, regardless of being a soldier or not, just a human decency point of view, I would never have mocked someone like that.
Well, you did.
Well, no, I didn't, not intentionally.
Not intentionally,
no, hold on a second.
But it may have happened unintentionally.
Well, hold on, it's like saying, you're talking about, imagine if you're talking about any one of these guys and you said something that offended them and you had no idea that they were offended. How would you know that?
Well,
I had
using
no
the
idea.
word retarded about somebody with a speech impediment.
No, I totally disagree with that. Absolutely, it was directed at no one. It was...
Who did you use the word retarded about then, if it wasn't directed at the woman
I
with the
never
speech
ever said
impediment?
retarded, ever.
The woman herself, who was being mocked for her speech impediment, also recalls the incident.
Okay.
And recalls that you were drunk and that you hit on her.
Oh, what a load of lies.
What?
Absolutely. Sorry, absolute load of lies.
Lies, okay.
Yep. Yesterday, we had a very, very, very serious threat aimed at me by a potential international assassin that had entered into New Zealand to deal with me in Christchurch. Because I'm ex-military, I have Tier 1 soldiers, which are former 1NZ SAS Special Forces soldiers that look after me when I do my events. And last night I had 6 of them on me.
Te Kahika's military background and connections have become a key part of his new image.
I don't know if you can see that. That's my military army card there. My history's out there for all to see. These blinking, if I was going to do due diligence on me, I'd probably be the easiest guy to ever do that on. And
what do you make of the impression that he gives of his time in the army?
I don't think that there's a need in such a small defence force to embellish one's achievements or what one has done. There's no need for it at all.
Again, back at that speech at the Akarana Yacht Club, Te Kahika also speaks of his move from the army to the police.
I had another go at applying for the police, and because of the work and my reports as a soldier, which were pretty good. They were pretty good. In fact, they were really good. Just saying. I got accepted straight away, and in fact, I was quoted as a meritorious candidate. Got accepted in the police. Went down to Porirua, and I was down there getting ready for graduation, and then I got wind. I was thinking to myself, well, hold on a second. I reckon there's something wrong with the way I was recruited. So what I did, I went to see the inspector, and I said to him, hey, mate, look, I reckon that the two people that recruited me, they didn't do something right in that process. I'm not convicted or anything like that. And he says, oh, what happened? And I said, well, they didn't say that. And I told them that when I was 16, I got caught with a roach outside the glue pot, Ponsonby. He says, oh, don't worry about that. That's all good. And then he said to me, who was it? And I mentioned the two names, and I saw his face change like that. He knew them. And so I wrote an official report to them, to the police, and said, hey, this is what happened. And then they came back and said to me that one of the policemen was a 40-year-old police veteran. He was just about to retire, and then that by exposing this, he was going to lose his pension and lose his job. So I've seen the dirty side of the government. So they gave me a choice: either I push this and stay in the police, and this guy loses his career, or I resign. So I resigned without question. One of the greatest resentments in my life, because what I should have done is I should have blown the lid, stayed there, and pushed this through. That's what I should have done.
We've spoken to several people who have a very different version of events to the one that you described.
Sure.
About your recruitment and what happened to end it. They say that what actually happened was that when it came time for elimination fingerprints for the AFIS database, that all recruits have to go through. That your fingerprints came back with a match. But not to your name.
What do you mean not to my
somebody else's name. That your fingerprints came back with a match to somebody else's name.
Right.
And that there was an investigation.
No, what had happened was I'd already gone to see our inspector about that and explained the situation to him. Now, when I grew up and when I was in the other, I know what the name you're referring to. The name that I grew up with as a kid, I had two names. One was my mother's name, one was my dad's name. So when that came up, it was all revealed, and I spoke to them about that. And but unfortunately, you know, the investigation that they put me through at the time.
They put you through an investigation. That's not what you've said publicly. You've said you resigned. That you went to the inspector. I did resign.
No, I did.
You went to the inspector.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
so you're on the wrong
resigned.
track. I'm sorry, you're on the wrong track.
You put me on the right track. Then what happened in the investigation?
No. So what it was, we were. I was put through an investigation. The then superintendent said to me, Billy, this is a very, very low level issue. Just go through the process. And in this process of the investigation, you know, we appreciate that you've come through. There's been a hit with your fingerprints. Your explanation is sitting there, just stay with the process. During that process, I was going through a number of personal difficulties as well with my own personal life back home. And it was at that time that I had some engagement with the investigating officers about the whole thing. And it was put to me that it would be better for everyone that I resigned. And you know what? Foolishly I did. And I regret that.
That's not quite the way that you tell the story.
No. Sorry, you can't just isolate one. That event that people go and refer to was my first ever public event that I spoke at.
Yeah, so you'd want to make sure that what you say at your first public event is right.
Hold on a second. No, have you done it? Have you done it? Have you done public speaking?
I'm not a politician.
No. Sorry.
And I'm not a politician.
And you know what? Neither was I at the time. It was my first event that I ever spoke at. And it was an event that was highly charged emotionally.
So you acknowledge that what you said there about the reason that you left the police, did not graduate police college, what you said at that event was not the full truth of what happened?
No. I revealed to everyone that I had gone through trouble at police college and that I resigned from it.
I acknowledge that that was your first public speech. But that what you said in that public speech about why you left police college was not the full truth about why you left police college.
No, I feel I revealed the right amount of truth at the right time.
His CV says something different again though. He says 2003 was a New Zealand police tour of duty, though that's not a term used in the police, and that it was full-time, not that he joined as a recruit in May 2003, didn't graduate, and his employment ceased in July 2003. A source who was in the same police intake as Te Kahika described his claim to be full-time in the police as quite an overstatement since he didn't get past 3 months of a 5-month recruit course. Full-time in the New Zealand Police, a tour of duty 2003, which sounds great, but it's not true.
Right.
You were at police college for 3 months.
No,
you didn't
it was longer
graduate.
than that. Yep.
No, you were at police college for 3 months.
3.5 months, was it?
Okay, 3.5 months?
Yep.
Of a 5-month police training course.
Correct.
You were not doing a tour of duty in the New Zealand Police full-time for 2003.
Well, it was full-time in the police doing the course, so the language is wrong. So if it's in that block that I'm thinking it's in, it's an incorrect, again, typo.
With his military and police careers over, Te Kahika had something else to fall back on. He comes from New Zealand music royalty. His father, Billy Te Kahika Sr, has been a legend for decades. Billy TK Jr is also a renowned musician who's performed around New Zealand and internationally, then becoming a promoter, assembling the lineup for gigs.
Ooh, this is a man's world. This is a man's world.
Which is how Petra Reinbeck knows Te Kahika Jr. Her experience has not been good.
If you disagree, if you grab more attention from the crowd than him, if you stand up to him in any way because you might be defending someone else or he promised one thing and did something else, you are berated. And that can be really intimidating and frightening.
Reinbeck recounts an incident where she and Te Kahika were both on stage and, let's just say, the song didn't go well.
And so he comes racing up to me at the bar and just goes, "Who do you think you are? This is my show, I make the calls." And I said to him, I was like, whoa, I wasn't trying to embarrass you. In fact, I thought I handled it quite well. You know, I sort of laughed it off. I mean, everyone makes mistakes. No way, that's just, you'll never sing in this town if you behave like that, and da-da-da-da-da. He just absolutely ripped into me in front of everyone. It was awful, and I was shaking. I was so... Well, I'll say it, I was scared because he's quite fierce. He might be a small man in stature, but when anger comes into his face, it's quite frightening.
Many others report similar behaviour and Te Kahika's line, "You'll never work in this industry or town again."
Okay, right. The old classic, "You'll never work in this town again."
Yeah, that classic.
Yeah, it's a classic, isn't it?
Mm.
You like it?
Mm.
Yeah, no, it's wrong.
That's not true either.
No, not at all. You know what, I tell you what, you know, I set a standard in terms of how hard I work in projects where I've employed musicians, and if they've not met it, I've fired them, and I would do it again tomorrow. Absolutely, and it's not bullying. I've never once bullied anyone and said, "You'll never work again." That's so cliche and non-linguistic for me.
That's true.
It's unbelievable. It's not true. I'm sorry, it's not true. Yeah.
People report being scared by you, scared of you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I've always dealt with people respectfully. I've never sworn at anyone. I've never threatened anyone in my life. I don't need to do that.
And yet multiple people say that you have bullied them.
Yeah, well, that's their perspective, and I'm sorry that they felt that way, but I've never done that, ever.
The allegations go wider than the music industry though, and beyond individuals.
I've had requests to do a study and a presentation on Zionism in Israel.
This is a post on his Facebook page from June this year.
I want to talk about how national Israel was formed.
There is enough of a theme in what he's saying to denote a much darker underlying ideal, and that scares me.
An underlying ideal of anti-Semitism, so Yakov Brown responded to Te Kahika on Facebook.
So I just wanted to give my opinion. This man's dangerous. I don't think that we should be supporting what he's saying.
They killed Jesus, but that doesn't mean I hate Jews and that God hates Jews, right? They have the same access to salvation. Amen. And that's a wonderful thing.
And as a result, Yakov Brown ended up in a video conference where he says what Te Kahika said got worse, not better.
He insinuated that a rich cabal of Jews controlled the world banking system and that the state of Israel was complicit in that. Secondly, he said something explicit. He said Baron Rothschild was a Satanist.
Can you please explain the significance of that?
I can. That statement is a very common conspiracy lie based on misinformation. It usually goes on to infer that the Rothschild family are somehow connected to this conspiracy of rich Jews who control the world. It's the kind of stuff you can read online easily because every conspiracy theorist and his dog has a web page about this kind of stuff. So straight away as a Jew, makes my butt tighten. I mean, you can't say that on TV probably. Straight away as a Jew, it makes me nervous.
Who are the Rothschilds, by the way? They were and are the bankers of the Vatican, and they have been forever, and they're Jewish.
It is deeply offensive. It's a resurgence of the belief that there are Jews and Jewish organisations around the world which are playing a role in what we're seeing as a sort of unravelling.
Others who know Te Kahika have observed the same thinking, just in the course of normal conversation.
The last time I saw him, it was a little bizarre. We were just having a general chat, and then he said, "Shane, what do you know about the One World Order?" And I said to him, "Well, are you talking about this conspiracy?" And this is, a couple of years ago, this conspiracy about the Jews running the world. He goes, "Well, there's more to it than that."
One of my favourite sayings is, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, which is, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. I've got some really beautiful Jewish friends, Israeli friends. When I was a young man living in Wanganui.
Do you think that he recognises that he's an anti-Semite?
Obviously he doesn't, because before he says these things, he makes a big play of the fact, I'm not anti-Semitic, I have lots of Jewish friends, I love the Jewish people, and then he'll rattle off the start of part of Hebrew scripture. And I've seen him do it twice. I've seen him do it once on a live stream video where he stumbles through Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. See, I know Hebrew. Okay, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. But he doesn't really know Hebrew. He's just using that as pretext for the anti-Semitic stuff he's about to say. And to be fair, to say that we Jews are somehow rich, like we've got 3 pots of gold in the basement, I want to know, where's my money?
On the issue of money, on his CV, Te Kahika describes building his own $1 million company. But we've investigated multiple instances of Te Kahika not paying people, or paying less than he said he would, or for reneging on deals like paying for accommodation.
I find him insincere.
This is someone who works in the technical side of the music industry and has known Te Kahika for 10 years.
I'm yet to meet someone who has told me that Billy TK has paid them in full for work, for services rendered.
How does he keep on getting away with that?
Oh, he just knows how to talk to people. He's very charming. He just doesn't have any character to support the words that he delivers.
Will you be doing business with him in the future?
Not a chance.
And remember that incident where Petra Reinbeck was publicly berated by Te Kahika.
So I went back to the motel and I was so upset I basically kind of cried myself to sleep. So I woke up in the morning to find a note under the door, just slipped under the door. Don't bother coming back, you've been dropped from the tour.
So he sacked you?
He sacked me.
For what?
For basically, I don't even know how to answer that, because I didn't do anything wrong. He felt I made him look like a fool on stage, and I didn't.
Did you get paid for the shows you'd already done?
No. No, I had to get back in my car and drive all the way home.
And you got nothing?
Not a bean. Not a bean.
Danger, danger, said the girl on fire. Somebody please help me out. This world is colder than a man could sire.
Singer, songwriter, teacher Maggie Coco met Te Kahika in San Francisco.
Billy is drawn to sex, fame, and money. Like, these are the things that drive him intrinsically.
He invited her to New Zealand to tour with him, acknowledging he couldn't pay her much, but that it would be a great experience.
He didn't tell me until after I accepted the price for touring that he wanted me to also join him in the studio, which is different fees, different skill set, different everything.
What was the financial arrangement from that?
So we never got back around to that. I think all the musicians, myself included, were just so focused on making something happen that we didn't have any of those conversations about splits or about royalties or about, you know, getting paid for studio time pretty much at all.
What did you get?
I have nothing so far, other than the $400 a week that was pre-agreed for the tour.
When I see you, I see you.
Sketchy financial arrangements are a recurring theme. Many of the concerns relate to music festivals Te Kahika organised in the Pacific Islands. Petra Reinbeck says Fiji in 2012 was a train wreck.
It was terrible. It was so poorly managed and poorly run.
Among the complaints, Australian musicians who've told us when they checked out they were left with a massive bill and faced a 3-hour ordeal trying to get Te Kahika to sort it. He didn't. We've spoken to a lot of people who worked with you in the music industry.
Yes.
You'll be aware of that.
Yep, I am.
Not just one or two people, but many people who say that you didn't pay them, or you paid them less than the agreed amount, or that you reneged on things like deals to pay for accommodation. As I say, not just one or two people, but many people have exactly the same complaints or variations of the same complaint.
Okay.
And so there's an established pattern there.
You think?
Well, yes.
No, well,
I do.
I'm sorry, I'd have to disagree with that.
Never, not once, not paid someone for the work that they've done. Anyone in the music industry, ever.
I've fired people halfway through contracts when I know that they haven't done it and I've paid them. I've never not paid a soul in my life.
Not one?
Not one.
Then why do we have multiple accounts of you not paying people?
No, it's because I've become a target.
All the people we've spoken to are making it up.
I've employed literally hundreds and hundreds of musicians over 26 years. And the people that I know that have spoken to you have really got it in for me.
And not one of them is telling the truth?
No, not at all. Not at all.
The financial concerns don't just relate to individuals. Te Kahika got so offside with the organisers of the Queenstown Jazz Fest in 2013 that they threatened to terminate their agreement with him. In the end, they renegotiated the deal, but say the festival did not break even, and Te Kahika was left to deal with the outstanding bills. They told us that was pretty much the last we heard of him. Te Kahika's memory of it is different.
No, what actually happened was they'd brought me in to use my brand of event to help them resurrect theirs. They had driven their event into financial despair. I was brought along to try and resurrect it, and I did that, and at the end of it they left me with a big bill that I had to pay.
The festival organisers told us the reality is very different to what he portrays it to be. It didn't put him off festivals though. If anything, he became more ambitious as CEO of a venture to bring the World Indigenous Festival to New Zealand last year. 190 countries invited, 300,000 people, global media. Of the list of supporters he thanks, Sport New Zealand confirms it paid $20,000 for an independent assessment of the event and never took it further. It also said Te Kahika did not have permission to use their corporate logo. ATED says the same. Te Kahika confirmed it also gave $20,000 to support the festival in the planning stages. But that's where it ended. A Te Kahika source told us Te Kahika's plan was a lot of noise and hype, but no substance. The festival was supposed to be in May last year, but in spite of the funds, including public money, it never happened. So with that fallen over, Te Kahika trained his sights on Samoa with a major business showcase. Jewel Hunt was the marketing manager. So you were privy to all of the detail?
Yes.
The plan was to sell packages to businesses, and the marketing was impressive.
So he was actually at one stage saying that the Prime Minister of Samoa was a keynote speaker, and he was selling off the back of that. And I did challenge him and say to him, that's not confirmed. Why are you putting those things up there when it's not confirmed?
Another international speaker whose name was used for marketing told us he'd had one phone call with Te Kahika and had never agreed to anything. What happened when you got to Samoa?
It was really embarrassing because there wasn't all the connections that they expected were going to be there, and they were just angry and upset, and I was absolutely overwhelmed with guilt and sorrow. I felt embarrassed to stand there on that lagoon and have to deal with them. So I walked over to Billy and I said to him, you've made a real mess of this, you've dumped me in it, you fix it. He said, well, it's your problem, you fix it.
A sponsor who invested a significant amount told us that instead of making money, in the aftermath he felt so sorry for local businesses that hadn't been paid that he covered Te Kahika's outstanding bills. A couple of thousand here, a couple of thousand there, he said. He sums up the whole affair as a lot of hype and false promises. But undeterred, Te Kahika goes on to use the event to pitch for major investment, an audacious plan for Samoa's infrastructure and economy. Bob Vaughan is one of the business people Te Kahika approached for money. What would it have cost you to have bought into that?
He asked for $30,000.
In the documents, Te Kahika trades on an endorsement from the New Zealand High Commission for a proposed pilot solar program. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade told us at no stage has MFAT or the New Zealand High Commission offered any endorsement or funding. Te Kahika's ambitious project would also include establishing an investment bank. He says, once the Central Bank of Samoa offers its approval, we will open the bank with a minimum deposit of holding funds to the amount of US $10 million as a first tranche.
And what it looks like when he, in the documentation he sent me, is that this stuff was, the train had already left the station, that this was well underway and moments away from being finalised.
But that was far from the case. The Central Bank of Samoa told us it was approached last year by Te Kahika's company, and setting up an investment bank was mentioned. But it never received a written application, so was never even in a position to offer approval. There was therefore no $10 million deposit made.
Well, it's hardly surprising, because the proposal he sent me, when you read it closely, doesn't stack up. It didn't have enough in it for me to be comfortable writing him a cheque for 30 grand, right? I mean,
why not?
It didn't detail how I'd fit in the organisation, what my share would be. It wasn't a proper share prospectus, if you like, right?
Did you ask him for that documentation?
I asked him for a share prospectus. Asking him for that, I said, if you get me that, I can get that in front of my board and we can get it going.
What happened?
Then he lowered the price to 20 grand, which I thought was a bit strange, but anyway, maybe he thought I didn't have 30 grand to throw at it, I don't know. But
did you get the share prospectus?
No share prospectus ever came.
What was the outcome of that proposal?
That was the last I heard from him.
'Cause we both know that you love the pain.
By the end of the year, Te Kahika was back on the road with a band, the tour Maggie Coco came to New Zealand for. And on that tour, she observed something which has been raised repeatedly with us.
A lot of his stories are about women.
In what way?
A lot of his road stories. A lot of his stories are about whatever women he could get to sleep with him on the road.
Would he also talk about his Christianity around that time?
I'm gonna preach Christianity at you and family values and even some fringe stuff like I'm a vegetarian because I'm Christian kind of things. And then by night he was ordering a steak and telling stories about all the women he's Billy preaches Christianity and family values and things like this, but Billy is a wannabe rock star through and through, like an old school wannabe rock star, like a bad TV wannabe rock star.
You've talked about the sex, what about the drugs?
I've seen him smoke pot, I've seen him drink his weight in things.
And how long have you known him?
I was on tour with him in October. I think I met him in August.
2019?
Yeah.
So we're talking about this behaviour in the past year?
Yeah.
He's out there saying that he's an honest family man, that he, you know, he's honest, got integrity, you know, he's a family guy, you know. And to be honest, when I first met him, I thought he was like that. He's charming, he's intelligent, he's engaging, he's all of those things. And I honestly, you know, thought the same until I started to see what he was really like. I mean, he calls himself a Christian, like he'd be in his room praying with his wife, you know, praying and acting all Christian. And then 2 days later with me, he'd be in a cafe telling me how the young Pacific Island waitress was wanting to have sex with him and that he was so nice looking and they're all falling over him. And it was just disgusting. I watched him. He got absolutely trolleyed and I saw him groping a woman. Yeah.
I'm sorry that this is probably uncomfortable detail, but what do you mean by groping a woman? What was
I
he
was
doing?
grabbing a bum and, you know, just trying to pull himself into her and that, making it advanced, letting him know that he was wanting, obviously, to, you know, to, I don't know, can't really say what he was wanting to do with there, but yeah.
You saw what you saw?
Yeah.
The woman Jewel Hunt saw being groped by Te Kahika confirms the incident, recalling that he was very drunk. People's observations of his behaviour with women probably wouldn't be worthy of exposing if he weren't now a public figure who trades on his integrity, and also because there are numerous examples of it. This is part of a statement to Stuff Circuit from a woman who performed with Te Kahika. She says, about an hour into the show, he became absolutely wasted. He was slamming whiskey, embarrassing me via the mic and making a huge ass of himself. He hit on every woman that walked by. Hey beautiful, come sit by me, get to know me, even kiss me a bit, it's fine. He pretends to be a great musician, but he couldn't even finish his show. He got so drunk. And the concerns about how Te Kahika treats women is where we were about to go in our interview. Your Christianity is quite a big part of your brand as a leader, isn't it?
It's part of my life, got nothing to do with being a leader, nothing to do with politics at all.
Part of your life.
It's a huge part of my life.
But now that you are a political leader, it's something you reference frequently, your faith and the fact that you're a husband, father, family man.
Right. So, Paula, you're starting to offend me talking about my faith. Okay. I'm sorry. So I'm going to leave now.
Why are you going to leave?
Because you've offended me. Sorry.
No, you talk about your faith, Mr. Te Kahika. You talk about your faith all the time. I think you're leaving because you know what's coming next, don't you? Billy, I don't understand why you're leaving.
No, because you're offensive.
What's offensive about that?
No, I'm not talking about my faith with you.
You don't have to talk about your faith. The exit is here, but you don't. You. There was much more we needed to put to Te Kahika, so we invited him to respond by email, but he didn't reply. Within minutes of leaving us, though, he was back on Facebook, speaking directly to his people.
Guys, I've just pulled over just to take a breath. I've just left the Stuff.co offices in Ponsonby, and I was invited to do an interview with them today. Now, Stuff.co have been just relentless in their attacks on us. The attacks on Jamie Lee Ross, the attacks on me, the attacks on the party. We're conspiracy nuts, everything else, and just goes on and on and on. And I took the interview because I always believe it's the right thing to front up to things. I knew it was going to be a tough interview, but I'm not afraid to deal with the tough issues.
Yet he walked away when it seems he knew exactly what was coming.
I know some of the accusations that musicians have made at me, claiming that in the last tour that I did, which was last October, that they saw me chase every woman that they could think of. One woman has said this, and as my wife knows, and as I've just been speaking to her as well, I didn't touch one woman. When I was young, and that I had major problems with handling female fans, and that it's something I'm deeply and highly aware of today. My respect level towards women has always been very, very high. And to say, these types of allegations, they're horrible. They really, really are.
When people speak out against Te Kahika, he has a playbook. He names them on Facebook and seeks to discredit them. And then his followers go after the person he's attacked. And who's responsible for that, ultimately?
The person that incites that, who says this person has slandered me, is the one that's responsible. A pack mentality is there's always a leader. And when that leader says, this person has slandered me, this person has harmed me, this person has done me an injustice, they armour up and come after you. And he is responsible.
He's going to try to discredit everybody who's talking about him. And he's going to do it in all the typical logically fallacious ways, ad hominem and whatnot. He's not going to attack any of the substance because he can't. It's true.
Te Kahika may say he will sue us for defamation. He often uses words like slander and libel because they suggest what people are saying is untrue. But everything you've just seen in this documentary has been fact-checked, corroborated, legally scrutinised. This is not a conspiracy.
And let's make Aotearoa